Welcome to Crimson Guitars. Welcome to episode 52 of Luthiers Question Time with me, Ben Crowe, a luthier from Crimson Guitars. This is a live stream and a podcast. The best bits, if there is such a thing, will be collated and compressed and prettified and turned into something for your ears to listen to while you work or avoid work. Yes. All of that, all of the above. Welcome, we have Dang, Nabbit, Rob Phoenix, SC Guitars, Rob Tootle, Luthiers in saying, hey gang, Jeff's Guitars, Tom H. Tom H is trying to rescue a 1940s archtop. Can a truss rod be retrofit into an old neck? Live without it, or replace the neck entirely? Will I go to hell for messing with an antique? Question mark. I love your stuff, thank you very much. I love yours. Okay. Will you go to hell for messing with an antique? Probably not, depends on the antique. If you are, for example, going to take a viola da gamba that was created in the 1600s and convert it into a cello, this was done up until as recently as the 1960s or 1970s, then yes, you should go to hell, and yeah, I need to see you after class. If this is a mass-produced 1940s archtop, if it has little to no historical value, if they made thousands and thousands of them, and if it's the sort of guitar, and chances are that it is, that most people wouldn't pay a tenner for, then no, you do what you need to do to make that guitar something that you can play and that you will love and adore and get use out of. My next video is going to be making massive changes to a guitar that I built for my daughter, and it's been in the corner of her bedroom for 2 or 3 years, gathering dust and quite possibly a little bit of mold, actually, looking at it, because she doesn't play it because it's an English ash body and it weighs too damn much. So, you know, I'm going to get the drill out again and go for broke. So I can't be too precious about this. You shouldn't be too precious about that. If you need a truss rod, then yes, I would steam the fretboard off, I would install a truss rod, and either put the original fretboard back on or, you know, upgrade it, and chances are it needs a bit of upgrading. So, yeah, I say go for it. If, however, you're talking about a 1940s Epiphone or a Gibson or, you know, any one of a number of D'Acquisto or D'Angelico, something like that, yeah, no, don't touch it, just leave it. And but you know what I'm talking about. Okie dokie. I am here to answer your questions. I need questions though, so feed me. Feed me questions. This is, funnily enough, another archtop question. This is via email, I suspect. This is Greg from Australia. He says, I love your videos, thank you very much. He finds heaps of useful tips. Professional opinion, I've come into possession of a 60s Coronet hollow body. It has sat unplayed, yet sadly strung to tension for over 25 years, causing the neck heel, the heel itself, to bow enormously. And I've seen photographs and it's insane. I've never seen a piece of wood that thick do that. It's crazy. His options are to attempt to steam it under weight in hopes of it going back into position. That will never happen. Wood, once it's decided it wants to be a particular shape, especially over a large amount of time and under pressure and tension and all that jazz, it's not going back. After which Greg says it would need considerable reinforcement, or simply should I route the heel back to flat, removing a wedge of material in hopes it won't continue to move. All right, Greg, I would suggest that you go with the latter, sorry. Wow, way to confuse the man. Route away the excess, give yourself something nice and flat to work with, and I would also suggest that you need to reinforce it in some way, shape, or form. The wood is obviously and patently weak, and removing more of it is going to fix the problem of where the neck is pointing, but over time it's just going to go back to that and probably snap. So I would suggest that once you have routed away a wedge of material, maybe you carry on going and remove a little bit more and glue in a... hell, you could probably even find a piece of carbon fiber, some pre-preg comes to you wet and then you cure it and all sort of stuff. Pre-cured 2 or 3 millimeter sheet of carbon fiber weave, and you could even inlay a piece of that on the back of the guitar. I know carbon fiber does not look in place in, what was it, a 1960s instrument, 1940s, 1960s. However, that could potentially give you the strength that you require. Another option is to drill where you're not really going to see it. So drill on the end of the neck heel and drill as far into the body as you can and install 2, 3, or even 4 carbon fiber rods. And you'll end up with a couple of dots on the end of the heel underneath the neck, but you would have a lot more strength moving forward. So that's what I would say. Super chats are the best way to make sure that I absolutely see your question, and this is from Joe Smijohn Jr., who is a regular on the show. He says, no wonder my alerts never come. You change the start time every week. Lol, I don't. Joe, seriously? It's been 8 p.m. UK time now for at least 2 or 3 months. The clocks haven't even changed yet. So, no. Thanks for the super chat, though. Okay. 123 SC Guitars is planning on wiring up his Mockingbird. Enamel Guitars, aka whatever. What a name. Thinking of a Gibson style nut on a Fender style fretboard. Are there any caveats for that? No, not... well, kind of. Essentially, the reason why the nuts are the way they are is, one, it's half the material, so Leo saved a little bit of money there. Two, with the neck break angle being basically non-existent, you would need to glue the nut in and make sure that it was glued in properly, and I don't think he wanted to do that. So essentially, you will lose some support for the nut, and you will need to make sure that it's glued in. I would also make sure that you've got string trees or something like that, or potentially staggered tuners. But yes, there we go. Good evening, Mark Ellis. How are you? Inky Guitar says hi and bye. He'll be back in half an hour. Lepidoptera Lady, how are you? Says, will 12-string saddles fit a 6-string bridge? I have an idea for an 8-string that swaps out the middle 2 saddles. Intriguing. Actually, that sounds really fun. Well done. You've suggested something that I've never heard suggested before, and I like it. I think that it depends entirely on what saddles you're getting, but if the string... yeah, if the spacing is the same, then yes, it really should. Your issue is going to be potentially how the ball end of the string is installed. Now, I've seen people using a 6-string recently, actually. I think it was on Reddit. Somebody used a 6-string Telecaster bridge that had the option for both through-body stringing and holes at the end of the bridge for strings, and essentially he used both. Let's have 12 strings. The intonation was, obviously not right, because both strings in each course were using the same saddle and the same intonation, etc. But hey, it's a telly. It was never really designed to have good intonation anyway, now was it? Okay. Disco Stu says, hi Ben, just got back home after the 6-day course. It's Sunday. Yes, of course. Had an absolute blast. Great seeing you. Sean and Tom are absolute gents and incredible teachers to boot. I'm very, very happy that we've got such a fantastic pair. We are looking for a third. Yeah, and particularly even more. So if any of you are interested and allowed legally to work in the UK and are guitar builders and interested in teaching guitar building, please, seriously, give us a shout. Yeah. Okay. Rab Knox. Okay, who's Anthony Cunliffe asked a question about scale length. Hello Ben, is there any reason you never really see a Strat type body with a Gibson scale length? Are they not compatible? And as a lot of people have said in answer to you, basically they are 100% compatible. In fact, I've got a couple of miniature Strats in there with probably 600 or well, no, probably 500mm scale lengths. They're tiny little ones for kids to learn on. So, yeah, you can make any instrument with any scale length. They do feel weird. But go for it. It basically won't sound like a Strat in the same way that a normal Strat would, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Lisa, how are you? She says she's a bit late. There was a question. I have a small Stanley plane, 15 centimeters long. It's missing a brass knob. Can I buy one from you, Ben? Potentially. Send me a photograph through to shop@vintagetoolshop.com and say... for the attention of... Well, actually, Safi is on holiday at the moment. Basically say, Ben sent me to ask if you have this spare part. Chances are that we do. We are also in the middle of an insane time, and it might not be readily available. But please, by all means, send us a photograph, model numbers, all that jazz, and we will get back to you. I suppose... Apropos of that, I am closing Vintage Tool Shop, the retail side of it, in the place it... Let me rephrase that. The Vintage Tool Shop is moving to Crimson Guitar's headquarters. It has been far too long keeping the two companies apart. So many of you have asked me on a regular basis if I can combine shipping and all of that jazz, and the businesses are utterly compatible and should just be one. So it's going to save a lot of money. It's going to save a lot of my time and a lot of diesel driving about the Dorset countryside, and it also means that by the end of January, at the latest, every single one of the vintage tools that is currently available through vintagetoolshop.com will also be on crimsonguitars.com website, and vice versa. And we're going to be pooling our resources to bring you even more cool stuff, up to and including maybe a few new tools, he says, gesturing at the vintage tools behind him. Rob Phoenix has come in with a £5 super chat. Thank you very much. Rob says, so important question. Did you buy those Japanese chisels? This is my contribution to postage and packaging. Thank you very much, Rob. I did not, because literally this is perfect. This is now 3 questions in a row that have led back to the same subject. Because I am seriously considering buying and selling some new top quality woodworking tools through the main Crimson Guitars website because it makes sense to. And that particular set of Japanese chisels is something I'm going to be trying to find at trade. And so, yeah. So tempting. So tempting. So many people think that... Sorry, so many people. People have questioned the timing of my phone buzzing and me getting that email from Workshop Heaven. And I swear on my mother's life, and she's probably watching this, or at least will respond to the comments, it happened. I was filming the outro of that last video, and while I was filming the outro, my phone buzzed in my pocket, and it was an email from Workshop Heaven with all of that. And it was just, even Matthew from Workshop Heaven sort of was like, "What? That was real?" So anyway, my life is awesome. Oh, Robert R says, "Hey Ben, hope all the family are all healed and healthy, or at least on the mend." We are all well. Byron and my wife had COVID, and that has gone, and with no major ill effects. My wife's sense of taste and smell left, but is actually coming back now. Whether that's a good thing or not at the moment, with half term and a bunch of children floating around the place as well as puppies, I don't know, but you know, it is what it is. Funnily enough, my middle child had horrific flu that was not COVID, but had worse symptoms than the other two. So it's been a really crazy week, and hence there was no Saturday video. Yesterday there was no video on the main channel as a result of all of that. But we're there. And Lisa's saying, "How did the birthday event go?" The birthday event went incredibly well. Thanks to you fantastic people helping with the super chats. No, it was great. My daughter now has a computer that will last her for a good 3 or 4 years at the very least, and on top of that, it is as cool as it is possible for a computer to be. It's a gaming rig with all sorts of fans and LEDs and lights and cool things, and yeah, it was a whole hell of a lot more than I was hoping to spend on a 13-year-old's birthday, but I've very rarely seen her as happy, so you know, all worth it. And she is paying off half of the cost of the PC by she's going to get a job at Crimson when she can. So there we go. Whew, whew. Robert R says, "Hey Ben, I sent a web link to a YouTube video showing sawing up an Osage orange log to the Crimson office this morning. Thought you might be interested in seeing the wood. Freshly sawn, it is bright yellow. A week ago, maybe, escaped and went and visited Yandel's, where they had some fantastic raw series wood in Osage orange. So I bought probably 3 or 4 guitars worth, and I'm very much looking forward to milling that up. Maybe we'll do a YouTube short or something about that. That's incredibly cool. Okay. Neil Jelks is saying that I drive that they're talking about the stupid fuel crisis that we had. The UK had all of the fuel that it needed, but what we didn't have was delivery drivers to get it to all of the petrol stations around the country. So for about a week and a half, there were restrictions on the amount of fuel that you were allowed to buy at each place, and 30 or 40 pounds worth. And my van takes 70 or 80 quid in each filling, and it was just silly. Basically, the second people said you can't have it, everybody went round and filled up when they didn't really need to, and thus there were actual shortages in various positions. But no, it's all sorted and fine, And Neil is telling Lisa that I, Ben Crowe, drive a V12 Ferrari. Please show me where this vehicle is, so that I can live up to your perceptions of me, please. And then make it electric. Okay. Robert Tucker, a guitar question. Fantastic. It says, nut placement. Can you explain compensation for placement of the nut types, i.e. locking versus standard versus zero fret versus locking? Locking versus standard versus zero fret versus locking. Okay, the only one in which the nut is in a different position is the zero fret, i.e. the zero fret becomes the nut. So the center of your fret, the center of your zero fret, which should be the point at which the string leaves, going to the bridge, etc., that needs to be bang on where the nut line would be. And then what looks like the nut when you've got a zero fret on an instrument, that is set further back, and it isn't a nut in the truest sense of the word. It is literally just something that is there to line the strings up properly. So yeah, there is no difference, there is no compensation, there is no change between a locking nut and a standard nut in position. Where the string leaves the inside edge of the nut, be it locking or standard, has to be the same position. Now, there are nuts that are compensated. The Buzz Phyton system comes to mind, and am I right in saying Irvana is another brand or something like that, where they will compensate at the nut to a certain extent, and that does improve the intonation and tends to make the instrument a little bit more perfectly intonated across the board, if done properly. I still question whether that's actually a requirement or not. Personally, I think that part of the beauty of the guitar is these little out of tune moments, etc. Lindworm Guitar says, hey Ben, anything special to consider when gluing up teak? Wipe it down with acetone due to the oils? I've never really had an issue with it, but that is something that people do, and if you have acetone to hand and a well-ventilated area, then I would say go for it. It cannot hurt. I tried it once with white spirit that actually left an oily residue that I didn't like, so I then had to I then replaned the joint and wiped it down with acetone, which didn't leave the same residue. Would that have glued up again? I don't know, but yeah, so yeah, don't do that. Neil jokes, I thought somebody was going to come with this. No, electric is still bad for now. The tech needs to evolve. It really does. I do understand that. Yes, it costs. Ecologically, it costs. Most electrical vehicles cost more in the ecological impact than a standard petrol vehicle. I think you could probably make the argument that most electrical vehicles are cleaner over the long term than a V12 Ferrari. But it also depends how often you drive the Ferrari. And for me, it would, if I have such a thing, it would have to be a daily driver. So, you know, that and a van, and we're good. Ruben Benedict says, ever build an acoustic bass? And if so, what were the challenges? I never have. Nope. Not something I've tried before. It is more tension, and getting it to be loud enough is a problem, so you want a particularly large chamber. So the issue is you want a large chamber, you want a big top in order to drive the sound, but a big top also means a weaker top, therefore you put more bracing on it. The bracing then makes it less responsive and less loud, and it's not the easiest of instruments to build. Matthias Lindgren says, "Hey Ben, cheap components for a first guitar build or expensive components so you can cannibalize it for later when you have learned from the first build." Alrighty. I would not say expensive components, but I also would not say cheap. Cheap components when I started were Goto. Nowadays, a Goto bridge is like middle priced to high priced and very, 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 very well made. And nowadays, you can buy cheap guitar hardware that really isn't actually fit to be called guitar hardware. So that basically what you need to try and do is avoid destroying all chances of making a viable guitar before you get to the building of the guitar, because hey, a first guitar is not an easy thing. So go and spend a reasonable amount on hardware, a reasonable amount on wood. I don't want you to go and buy a quilt maple top or a purple heart and wenge blank to make yourself a multi-laminate through neck, etc. All of that sort of stuff. You shouldn't. You definitely shouldn't use a Schaller Hans bridge, for example, as your first ever bridge. Those things are not fun. Those things are not fun for me to install, let alone somebody doing it for the first time. But a Tune-o-matic and a tailpiece as a first bridge could not be easier. Go for it. A good quality wraparound bridge, yeah, that sort of thing would be fantastic. So there we go. Tread the middle road and you'll be all right. Rab Knox says, "Ben, what are your thoughts on golden Phoebe wood for a fretboard?" My thoughts are I've never heard of that wood and it sounds like something out of Friends. Ben Timon says, "Do you let a neck rest for a few weeks before planing it?" I tend to as much as possible, yes. Now, my... how I work here is not necessarily best practice. When I'm building a guitar for YouTube, I'm building and I have to get a certain number of videos out, or I want to get a certain number of videos out, and there's time constraints. So where possible, yes, I will let it rest and all of that jazz, like we do at Crimson. So Crimson, I've got a rack of probably 70 or 80 necks, all sitting there in various stages of carving and construction, etc. And they sit there for months and months and months. So that we're absolutely certain the wood is not going to do any moving in between each of the stages. Here, I'll probably leave it a week or two, but I am also using wood that has been properly dried, and yeah, if it doesn't move inside of the first week or two, it probably isn't going to move. If it's really going to move, then it definitely will move within those first couple of weeks. Based on my experience and with the quality of wood that I purchase. I also use carbon fibre stiffening rods all the time, so there we go. Neil Jugs has got a couple of questions in Discord. Okay. My apologies. Let's go back up to the top. Mr. Rang says, "Hi Ben, I recently applied my first coat of penetrating oil to my build as per instructions, and after drying I've noticed that there are a couple of small spots which I can feel if I run my finger over it. Is this due to not wiping off the excess enough once it was tacky? What's the best way to combat this? Apply oil with 1200 grit wet and dry maybe? Sand it back and reapply? Thanks so much. Sorry if you can't really see it in the picture." I can't. So I love it. You've answered your own question there. It's one of those two things. Let's move on. I would apply the next coat using 1200 or 1500 grit wet and dry paper across the whole instrument. Now, what I think has happened there is something that doesn't happen with 90% of guitars. You've got particularly well dried wood with open pores, and essentially the penetrating oil has gone right deep into the wood, which is what it's designed to do. The surface oil has started drying off, and you've done your job and wiped it off and then left it to dry. I then go back. Ooh, another super chat. I then go back and 10 minutes later check, because the oil that has gone right down deep sometimes comes straight back out the pores of the wood, leaving what look like little geysers. What's that? Yellowstone National Park's got water that comes out and all that jazz. So yeah, crop circles. It leaves oil-based crop circles on your guitar, and it dries, and that's done. Some woods are worse than others, but yeah, that's where you're at. Now, applying it with wet and dry paper will also create a slurry of dried oil and wood dust and all that, and that will fill those pores and hopefully stop this from happening again. Whew. Joe Smythe John Jr. is coming with a super chat. Thank you very much, Joe. Does Crimson make truss rods from scratch? ? Or are they prefabricated? ? They are prefabricated. We don't mess around with metal too much at Crimson. I think the most we do is we play around with the laser cutter for some things, and we hand turn the custom there on that side, the hammer heads for our custom handmade fretting hammers. So that being said, I am in talks with a company that does truss rods to order for us to whatever length we require, or at least that is what I was led to believe last week. So if you have a custom requirement, drop us an email, stream@crimsonguitars.com. Mark Ellis says, "Hi Ben, I used stunning stain shots with melamine lacquer mixed in to colour match a repair on the finish of a friend's guitar this week. Once flatted back and polished, it worked so well." Thank you very much, Mark. I have not thought to mix the shots with melamine lacquer. Rob Tootle says, "Granger hardware is reasonably priced and excellently made." It is. It's made in the UK as well, which is really cool. Neil Jelks says, "I get nice Fender hardtail bridges from Axis R Us. Seem pretty solid, and I have no issues so far. Pretty cheap too. Axis R Us, I don't know how they do it actually. They do very cheap, which is really good." Okay, Electric Lady Guitars Devon UK, who is who knows a little bit about tree felling, says, "At felling, oxygen makes/reacts with alder to turn it bright orange and ash to turn quite pink. It's a shame the colouring can't be regained without staining." Did not know that. Okay, it's questions in Discord, and don't forget the super chat exists. Okay. Lee Berry via Twitter? I'm not sure. "Have you ever considered using rainbow eucalyptus wood for a guitar build?" I would love to. I've never seen it available, to be honest. I have seen photos of it, though. It's incredibly cool. NZ Craig via Discord, links in the description, etc., says, "A couple of headstock related questions. Number one, how important is straight string pull, I think you mean. Honestly, I used to think it was the be-all end-all of guitar building. If you can't design a guitar with straight string pull at the nut, then you don't deserve to be called a guitar builder. That's just so much bullshit. I'm ashamed that that is what I thought. Essentially, as long as the strings are not going off at major angles, then you aren't going to have, with a well-cut nut, any problems. When I thought straight string pull was absolutely essential, I coincidentally was not very good at cutting nut slots. Go figure. So yeah, with a well-cut nut, no, you can have every single string at an angle, and it looks fine, and in fact it looks better. Straight string pull tends to create a narrower headstock, which is not as attractive. Number two, does it matter what the headstock angle on a Gibson style neck is, and is there an optimal angle? So it does change the way that the instrument feels. It really does, to a certain extent. Now, if you have a tremolo, this is a rule that I have heard time and time again, and I've got no reason to disbelieve it. Experience has proved it out, basically. If you have a tremolo, then you want a lower string break angle at the headstock, because essentially you are shortening and tightening the string, loosening and tightening, to talk properly. Yeah, with a slightly lower angle, you're still keeping the string in there. You've still got a nice amount of tension, i.e. 9 degrees or 10 degrees. But it's also not sawing at the nut with too much pressure. If you have a fixed bridge, you can have a 12 degree or a 15 degree, or even more if you really want to, string break angle at the headstock. Now, that being said, for pretty much every single guitar that I do, I settle at around about 10 degrees. In fact, it's got to the point where I don't even bother measuring it anymore. It's just, that looks around about right. Not too steep, not too shallow, and you're away. So yeah, 10 degrees or so works with both tremolo and hardtail bridges, and you should be fine. Scotsman via Discord says, "Hi Ben, I can get this top nut off, i.e. the brass nut in the top bit of the handle." I'm wondering, you can't actually see that on your screen. So there we go, this brass nut that's on the handle of the main handle of a plane. I can get this top nut off, but the handle seems completely stuck on the shaft of the threaded rod. Any tips or tricks to getting it apart? Cheers. Okay, so take the frog out. Ooh, that's an old Woden, that is. Take the other bits off the instrument. Planes are instruments as too, everybody. As long as the other screw is undone, you should be able to twist it gently, and that should come out. Basically, you should be able to twist the handle and it will just pop off. If that doesn't happen, then what you really need to do is probably heat up the threaded rod that goes down to the body of the plane. Now, you don't want to burn the handle, but you do... Yeah. It's not the easiest of things to do without causing damage. The best way is probably to... take a screwdriver or an Allen key or something like that and push it down onto the end of the threaded bar, and then you heat up that Allen key. Obviously you're going to be holding it a pair of pliers or something like that, so you don't heat yourself up at the same time, and the heat should loosen everything up in both the handle and the metal down in the body of the plane. Max is asking me if our fretboard restorative oil smells like these candies, and it's not candies I've ever heard of. Nim 2. Basically, you're about right. It's probably got the same ingredient in there. Garage Master Guitars via Discord. Says, I've done 2 fret level crowning and polishing jobs since my one-day course. They've both come out beautifully. Time well spent. Thanks, Crimson. It's an absolute pleasure. And yeah, I often, well, come and do a course to those of you who haven't yet. And as soon as you finish the course, find as many guitars and as much time as you can spend on those guitars as possible, because doing is learning, and having access to the teachers that we've got and the tuition and the kit and the tools and all of that jazz makes a difference. But once you've done that, practice is where it is at. Robert Tucker says, I have access to extremely quilted maple, relatively cheap. 5 inches wide, great for necks, but what would you suggest to approach caps? First of all, drop me an email, Robert. I would like to buy as much of that as humanly possible. So 5 inches basically means that you would have to have a 3-piece top. If you want top material, I think 7 inches is about where it needs to be. So there we go. Joel Shapiro has sent a $5 super chat, and I'm thanking you for both the money and, this is a good question, and now for something different. Electric upright bass build! Exclamation point. Thanks for what you do, Cheers. Thank you for what you just did. I have wanted to build a good EUB forever. In fact, since I was at West Dean College building 7-string viola da gambas, in the back of my mind I was thinking, you know what, I could build a killer electric upright bass. And it's something I have to do. I have to do that at some point. Temptation. Yeah, Isotunes sent me some swag the other day. They've actually, hold on. They've just come out with the Isotunes Lite. It's a more budget-friendly earplug headphones with Bluetooth 5.0, ultra lightweight, etc. I haven't tried them yet, but if they are anything like everything else they do, yeah, check them out. Robert Tucker. Extremely quilted maple, relatively cheap. So tempting. Now, I'm still waiting for these questions. I'm still looking for those questions that I was told about on here. Okay, from Joe, there's a couple of photographs of some very pretty wood. Yes, that would absolutely work for a top. And yes, Max, please bring some of those sweets when you come over. That would be awesome. Now, there should be some more questions in Discord, I think. Okay, I haven't got them yet. Now, Joel Shapiro says, it so happens I'm a bass player and would love to get one. Well, Joel, if you fancy commissioning one, then I guarantee I will do it with you. And I'll create a video about the whole thing as well. Now, that is one of the reasons why I haven't actually done it is because I am not a bassist. And I would prefer to do something like that is out of my comfort zone in partnership with somebody who knows what they're after. And it tends to make a better instrument. Zach Ellison says, there should be 45 more thumbs up. He said it in all caps. So, yeah, come on, people. 104 watches, 59 likes. Yeah. SE Guitar says, wish I got Isotunes swag. I am incredibly lucky. I understand. I agree. Rob Tootle says, Ben, just to say the neck arrived a week after I contacted the office and it was worth the wait. I loved the piece of ebony they chose for the fretboard. I'm glad that that was sorted out. We have... we've got... There are supply issues across the board, and one of my supply issues is to do with actual people. We're shuffling people around at the moment, and it's just utter chaos. It's utter chaos. I'm moving back to Crimson myself. I'm going to be doing a lot of my building from the main workshop there. And it's all going to get better and better and better. Not that it's bad as it is, it's just not as good as it could be. Anyhow, Joe Smyjohn Jr. is coming with another $5. Thanks very much, Joe. And says, isn't the EUB technically a cello? Yeah, I think there are arguments for and against. No, because an EUB is designed to be played with a plectrum or your fingers, and a cello is designed to drive the strings with a bow. And there are... but you knew that. You're just yanking my chain. It's all good. It's all good. Alan Bunn says, I always hit the like button before the video/stream even starts. Thank you very much. Ben, have you made any wooden hand planes for yourself? That's from Mr. Zombie 170. How's it going, Mr. Zombie 170? I have not. I haven't. It's one of those projects that I really, really do want to do, really, really will get around to doing. I've got, in this top drawer here, I've got various brass bits for a little cool looking dovetailed brass and steel plane that I started building probably 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know. Utter chaos. I like Joe, I like how your truck is your photograph on your YouTube thing there. Joe is driving around the country and hardly ever misses a show. Lisa says, so who is the web mistress now? The website, etc. is well, we're not entirely sure what's happening with that at this stage. Our biggest issue is making sure that all of the emails and customer service stuff is dealt with properly and on time, and it just seems to be a never-ending issue. There's always questions, and every time you answer an email, you get 2 or 3 replies. So there is that. The website design part of things, we are considering bringing in a third party at this stage, because it's not quite right, and it really needs to be. And we just, we had somebody that we thought was absolutely perfect, and they got COVID and never came back. They're still fine, but just decided, actually, I don't know what they decided, but they didn't come back to work. So there we go. Are you watching me tiptoe around these issues that are sensitive? Neil Jelks is currently holding a soldering iron to a stuck bolt. Lol. Good luck. Martin Baker says, why do base tremolo systems not use locking nuts? Most tremolo systems don't use locking nuts. It's just Floyd Roses and the like that really do. Because they're probably not that necessary, to be honest. Stephen Clark says, I have all my timber collected for my GGBO 22 build, minus the black and white veneers. Are there any major changes we should be ready for in the near future when the official announcement is made? Well, I mean, that would be stepping on the toes of the official announcement now, wouldn't it? GGBO 22 is running. It is not going to be running in the same exact format. And this is something that I really need. I wanted to sort this out a month ago, and basically through COVID and operations and everything that's been happening here, it just hasn't happened. We essentially made a huge commitment in setting this up, and I don't regret that for one second. But we're here. The last question was talking about issues with Crimson not dealing with customer service emails as fast as I would like, or being as on the ball with all of these things as I would like. And as the company grows, that gets more and more difficult. And this competition ended up taking a full-time member of staff basically 6 months to run. And when you think about what a full-time member of staff costs, I don't think we made a loss, but not very much of the money that was raised went to doing what I wanted it to do, which is giving people free courses and subsidized kits and all of that jazz. Most of the money went to just running the goddamn competition. Excuse my French. So I'm having to make some changes to make that not be an issue. And it's silly things like somebody sitting there for a week and a half uploading photographs for people, or updating 400 people's profiles, or answering 40 emails a day. So things are changing. The competition itself is going to go ahead, and I don't think there are going to be major changes. I think that there is talk at the moment about different categories, because there are some people that are obviously professional guitar builders, and it's not quite fair to lump them in with somebody who's building their first or second guitar, for example. But all of this is still up for grabs, to change. So if you have any ideas, please drop us an email to stream@crimsonguitars.com and let us know. Let us know what you think. Luthier says, when are your planes coming out? That's actually something that I really, really want to do as a matter of some expediency. Wow, I'm running out of energy, and it's not even yet 9 o'clock. Wow. Okay, Ross Stokes says, hi Ben, is it worth the effort to build a case for a standard-sized guitar, or would you just make one for an oversized or odd-shaped instrument such as an Explorer or Firebird? It depends on what turns you on, to be honest. In the abstract, I love the thought of making a really cool case to match a really cool guitar. I really do. I think that would be incredible. But when it comes down to it, I'm a guitar builder. I'm not a case maker. And I have more fun building guitars than I have putting a chunk of plywood through a table saw, for example. So yeah, I would just buy a standard one, and we'll go from there. Joe has come in with another $5 and says, that's my old truck, the new one is blue. Blue makes everything better, doesn't it? Electric Lady Guitars says, would love to see Ben make a crimson drum kit for his kids. Obviously, somewhere down the line. My wife wouldn't. Robert Tucker says, where would I mail, say, a few pieces of wood to you, Ben? With 3 question marks. What length? Everything goes to Crimson Guitars headquarters, which the website, the address is on the website at crimsonguitars.com, and let's talk. Drop me an email through Stream. I would happily purchase this from you. It would be very, very cool to potentially make an entire instrument out of it, i.e. a neck, so something long enough for a neck blank, but then pieces enough to do, as I said, a 3-piece quilted maple top would be amazing. But thicknesses and all that sort of stuff comes into it as well. But yeah, and if there's enough to go around, and you fancy sharing your sauce, I would at Crimson we would buy a lot. I can never get enough quilted maple. And you are a gentleman, by the way. Tahoe Mike says, you've told the story of seeing that guitar in a shop window and thinking you could build it. Have you built it yet? I haven't. I have not. I was sitting with my wife thumbing through guitar books today, trying to figure out what my next major build is going to be, and I've got the hand tool build coming and I've got the watch inspired build coming. They're going to be two separate builds running concurrently, one on Wednesdays, one on Saturdays, with two separate editors actually, I hope. And yeah, the ES335, blonde ES335 that I saw in that window in a guitar shop in Pretoria. Yeah. And so anyway, the temptation was, do I make a hand tool only ES335 or ES355 kind of a guitar, or do I do another guitar that I have lusted after forever and have also yet to make? And I've decided for the other one because it's going to be slightly easier to make, but also slightly more traditional. I.e., I think that the reason why people ask me to do hand tool only builds is to see what I would do with regards to a solid body instrument. So I'm going to go and I'm going to build a semi-solid Paul Reed Smith semi-hollow with the F-hole, and well, hand tool only build, all of the above. Full birds, or maybe something better than full birds. Full ravens, crows, corvidae. Anyway, we'll see. So, but that being said, yeah, I really do, using power tools, I do want to build myself a 335 style instrument. So, yeah, that will come along. Neil Joggs has a couple of questions in Discord. Scotsman said, is this deep enough for my nut? Should I really channel it a bit? I would... Oh, that should be fine. As long as you glue it, and you'll be fine. Everybody, don't forget to take the survey on the aforementioned crimsonguitars.com website and what we can do to improve it, etc. The links are throughout the podcast. SC Guitars keeps on putting them up. I would very, very much appreciate your... your input. Okay, that's Outlook. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, Joe, that wood is very, very pretty. Jake Richard says, maybe add an amateur part for the newer builders in GGBO. I think that's... Well, this is the thing. Stephen Clark says an ES335 would make an amazing watch build. I think the watch build, as somebody suggested last week, has to be a 12-string guitar with 24 frets. So, yeah, we'll get there. Lisa's asked me what I'm drinking. Pure Dorset water. Ben, get Mrs. Ben to criticize the site. Absolutely, that's a very good point. She has been somewhat distracted for the last month or so. Okay. Stephen Clark says, thank you for addressing my question. You're the man and seem to be a fantastic boss. Yeah. Thank you. Maybe one day I can be a minion of Crimson. We are currently hiring. Like literally, we are currently hiring. So drop an email through. There may well actually be a position for you. In all seriousness, Rob Tootle says, Ben, with regard to the kit neck, how deep should the neck pocket be, and is a break angle required using a Granger hardtail bridge? I would say a break angle of sorts is not ever a bad thing, but with a Granger hardtail bridge, you're only talking about a degree, and it's not absolutely necessary. So, no. How deep should the pocket be is essentially you want measure the depth of the kit neck, which is probably 18 millimeters to the bottom of the fretboard, and that's how deep you want it to be. Joe is back again, says, why not mix the two and make the watch-inspired build with hand tools only? That really was what Saturday's video was going to be. I was going to combine the two things, and it would be fine. And, you know, the best watches in the world are made by hand. I take that back. The best watches in the world cost $5 and are made in super factories. But the watches I like are made by hand, and are utterly out of my reach. Check out the Grubel 4C. I don't even know what it's called. It's saved as the. Just check out Grubel 4C watches. They made a one-off in 2019 that just blows my mind. So yes, it did cross my mind, but on the watch build, there are certain elements that have to be made on the lathe, basically. And while technically I could argue it and say, oh, well, you know, I'm making a control knob, and on any other handmade build, I'll just buy a control knob, it just wouldn't feel quite right to me. So yeah, no, not. But there are. Okay. Well, it just means there's going to be 2 builds going live for the next couple of months, which is no bad thing. Billy Littlejohn says, Ben, did you see the blue collection of arch tops that went up for sale? I did not. The only blue collection of arch tops that I know of were part of the Scott Chinnery collection. I think he had 1,500 guitars, 1,400 guitars, something like that. Now, I am aware, I think that Scott himself is no longer with us. But he commissioned the best archtop makers that he knew at the time to all make. That was a Benedetto there. Jimmy de Keystone, etc. Fantastic. If they're all up for sale, does anybody need a liver or a plain collection? Okay. Blues covers his high bend. May I suggest a semi-hollow 335 with a 5-piece neck through and a string through bridge? That does sound cool. I'm going to have to demo the guitar playing the Incubus song, A Crow Left of a Murder. Incubus are the band that made me fall in love with the PRS Hollow Body 1, the really, really deep one. Their live sessions with that just oh yes. Alan Barnes says, when I finish building my guitar, I'm planning to make a gig bag for it. Can I embroider a close approximation of the Crimson logo on it? It will not be sold. It will be for personal use. You can, but don't show me because I would have to complain. Essentially, the Crimson logo is the Crimson logo, and it is trademarked, and it's not. It can only be used legally by Crimson, really. Inlaid duck-billed platypus in there. This is from Ben Timon. Ben, surely it's duck-billed platypi or platypuses. Platypuses, as I don't know. That didn't sound anywhere near as funny as it did in my head before I said that. Please forgive me. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum. David Spears, hey David, says, hey Ben, I'm currently in my garage tending to my new hobby, growing hot peppers. Aha. Do you have something you want to do completely apart from guitar building? I have a difficulty. I am difficult. I have many things that I'm interested in, and I seem to be incapable of saying no to myself. Now, earlier on in this video, I said that I was moving my vintage tool shop, closing down the retail premises that it has, which really makes me sad because it's an incredible shop. But I'm closing that down to move that to Crimson. I'm also closing down what was something that I've wanted for my entire life, but is just not financially viable, and that is a vintage bookshop. And I've got thousands and thousands of books. Not many of them are, really nice books, but I love books. I love reading, and the shop next door to the tool shop came up, and I couldn't expand the tool shop into it due to commercial rates would then become a thing, and it would not be viable. So I took the space as a favour to the landlord, because I'd always said I would, not understanding at that point when I said that the rates would essentially cripple the business. Hey, why not? I've always wanted a bookshop. Let's put a bookshop in. But that is also closing, and because it's just not viable. So I've got. Anybody want 5,000 books? Completely aside from guitar building, I got heavily into watch collecting as much as I could over the last 3 or 4 years, and I'm torn about that. I am torn. One of the things that I love about it is that I have managed to immerse myself into a completely different thing, i.e. reading articles and books and things about something that isn't either vintage tools or guitars. And this is where it got strange. The vintage tool shop exists as a completely separate entity to Crimson Guitars because I allowed myself to get distracted and start a whole different business, which I shouldn't have done. I should have just done it as part of Crimson. So yes, I'm always tempted, always tempted to do different things, but I really need to stop myself. And in fact, I fell out of love with guitar building for a while, and that was mainly because of some of the people that I was working with in the business that were just not making me love my job, And but now it's the exact opposite. I am absolutely in love with guitar building. I'm absolutely rephrase that. I am not absolutely in love with any of my stuff. I am very happy with all of the staff that I have, and the relationships I have with them, and how it's working, and how the business is growing and changing and moving forward. And I am so excited by Crimson. I think plane making plane making is something that we are doing and are going to do, and it's going to be great. I am also doing a little side project to fill the time on the CNC machines. I want to create essentially art to then sell through various galleries around the country, and it will be CNC machine doing its thing and very little human time, but really pretty stuff that people can put on their walls. So those two things are, yeah, gonna happen. So there we go. And who said the watch talk begins? Well, whoever you are, I'm going to stop talking about watches now. Ben Timon says, Ben, what do you think of alembic guitars? I used to really like them. The style is no longer quite my thing, but I used to really, really like them, actually. Heavy. Very heavy, but very pretty. Alexis Guitar says, hi, Ben. Apart from the pickups and without going into any tonewood discussion, tonewood? What are the important factors in the construction of a guitar that influence how bright it will sound at the end? The most important is, I would say, the hardware. So if you have cheap pot metal hardware with 40 pieces per string, then it's not going to sound particularly great. If it's made out of hardened steel or good brass or something like that, then yeah, and fewer moving parts, etc., it will be nice and bright and sustainy. So that pretty much. Now, harder woods actually do make a guitar sound brighter. It's just not the be-all, end-all. The pickups have far more effect on how an electric guitar sounds once amplified than the wood does. Here we go. Okay. Platypodes, platypieces. I like it. Okie dokie. Joe Smudgeon comes in with another $5 and said, watch collecting? Question mark. Don't you mean hoarding? Lol. Yeah, I'm actually going to be divesting myself of a bunch fairly soon. I can't justify. Yeah. I've been very, very lucky to get a number of of watches that are very, very hard to get, and I've been able to get them at retail prices, and the second-hand market in some of these watches is truly bonkers. But it means that I'm walking around wearing a watch that is worth literally 3 or maybe even more times what I paid for it. And that figure is a figure I would never spend on anything so stupid as a watch. And I'm sitting here going, I really shouldn't have that. It's difficult and weird. Anyway. Stephen Clark says, Ben, we're officially best friends. Get over it. Lol. Stephen, where are you? Yeah, give me a shout. We need to meet up for a drink or two at least, if this is the case, Actually, I was, in all seriousness, I was wondering, okay, rephrase. I have a relative who has written a novel and wants to write more and all that jazz, and we were talking about book tours and the like, and it reminded me of an idea I had pre-lockdown about me going and literally doing essentially a book tour, going and visiting a bunch of different guitar shops or whatever around the country, just over 2 or 3 days, and maybe meeting up with a bunch of people. And I know it's only in the UK, but how many of you would in the UK be interested in doing that? Platypodes, platypieces, platypus from Bulgarian Evolution. Stefan Rokes says, what about building a vegan guitar? Bum, 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 bum. Would that mean I can't wear my shoes? I'm fairly sure that most of my guitars are vegan anyway, in all seriousness. I use bone nuts, but I don't use them exclusively. So maybe 50% of my guitars have bone nuts. Other than that, what's not vegan about a guitar? In all seriousness, though, doing a video series entitled "Hey, I'm going to build a vegan guitar" would attract, I suspect, the sort of militant vegan people, and I just don't need that kind of attention. No, thank you. Yeah. Lisa says, "Hey, does anybody know the make of the 12-string Eric Clapton plays in the balcony promo of Black Magic Woman?" I can't even picture it. Probably Martin. Dang Nabbit says, 5,000 books? I am so glad Mrs. Dang isn't watching this. Hold on. Where are we? Lisa's like, me. Is that with regards to the books or the meetup? Nick Guitar says, have you ever tried purposefully twisted neck guitars like tools or guitars? Thoughts? I have not tried to make one. I have, however, made one by mistake once or twice. And yeah, they feel comfortable, except if it goes the wrong way, in which case, hey, it sucks. Stephen, that's definitely a dad joke. When is a dad joke a dad joke? When it becomes apparent. Works better written down. I'll show myself that now. Woohoo! There's a super chat. Disco Stew! How's it going? You shouldn't be sending me super chats. You've just finished paying for a guitar building course. Aside from builds suitable for your YouTube videos, what type of design is currently floating your boat? Anything you wish you could make, simply for yourself, or even for Crimson Production? When I first started, I really was patently into spiky things and spiky guitars and leather and all that. And yeah, I want to do a little bit more of that. I really do. But then again, I also concurrently was building viola da gambas and baroque instruments and the like, and I really want to get into that side of things as well, and I want to build myself an old L5. I really do. And that was one of the first guitars I fell in love with as well. So definitely that. Literally yesterday I went and I bought a new book about the language of design with regards to both websites and products and text and all that. It's a full course thing, and I'm really looking forward to reading that. But yeah, that. The biggest issue I've got right now is weight. It's how to take a single piece solid body guitar made out of readily available woods like English ash that are weighty as all hell, and making it not too heavy and also leaving it attractive. So that's my biggest design problem right now. Anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. I do appreciate it, and yeah, I hope you recover from your course, and it's all good. Platter P from Ben Timon. Rob Phoenix is up for a beer. I'm in Norwich. I was actually in your neck of woods quite recently. I'm gonna be doing a bunch of visiting timber yards and things like that. I will try and actually organise a trip and publicise it and do some meetups with people at pubs and things. I think that could be quite good. Vax Headroom, how you doing? Vax Headroom says Yairi Guitars did a lot of promos in the time frame. My Yairi DY76 is the best 12-string I've ever played. Would put it up against Taylor, Martin, Gibson, miscellaneous. Nick guitar, you're prodding. Just be nice. Neil Jelk says, welcome to Head North, Loon. Yep, I'll do that one day. Soon. I was in Northampton very recently. Northampton is famous for shoes. Lisa says, the tour. Actually, that could be quite fun. So, I could do a tour, I could live stream the questions of the people in the room. That whole interaction could be quite fun if there is enough internet. And therefore everybody who isn't in the UK could actually join in, and yeah, that could be quite cool. That really could be. Vax Headroom says, how about an electric viola da gamba? That does sound fun. I restored a viola da gamba / guitar kind of a thing. It was one of the more popular videos this week. This week. This past year. So there we go. The Crimson Helium Body. Ultimate weight relief. I suppose the only issue with that really is that the helium degrades over time and stops lifting things up, so you'd have to fill it up on the regular. You could fill up all the pores, etc., I'm sure. Zach Ellison says, Ben, you would / could design and could make a custom prototype for your guitars. Don't your buyers deserve it? It could be a part of kit build. Make it a deluxe kit with accessories you choose. You could design. It's pretty much what we do. Most of the prototypes are made out of. So, for example, we know how a guitar neck works. There's no need to prototype a different headstock. We know that we can make any headstock. It's just the thing. It's the bodies that are the issues, and we tend to make multiple CNC prototypes out of new bodies, out of pine or just general stuff, so we can see. So they tend not to see the light of day, I'm afraid. But yeah, everything I do is prototyping, basically. Dang Nabbit says, come on tour, we will host you in Cumbria once I'm back there. I'd love Cumbria. I think anybody who has ever been to Cumbria loves Cumbria, so there we go. Alright, I think I'm going to do something like that. Maybe it might be a good way to sort of come out of this whole lockdown nonsense. And it's not nonsense, I understand. I'm not saying that it's nonsense. I'm saying, it sucked, and it would be nice to meet some people. It would be. Alrighty, now alright everybody, look, I'm gonna say goodnight. I think I have not seen any more questions. I'm gonna have a look here. If you've got any questions you desperately want me to see, then super chat is the way forward. We've got another, say, 4 or 5 minutes, and we'll see what's happening. Now, can you recommend, this is from A. Adam to Remember, can you recommend a good place to get wood for guitars when purchasing on a slightly smaller scale than you do, Ben? Maybe 1 or 2 guitars worth. South Wales based here. I like South Wales as well. Wales is one of those places where I, looking like I do, will walk into a pub and silence descends like I'm walking around with a woolly blanket. But other than that, I like Wales. Honestly, most of the time I do just buy 1 or 2 guitars worth. For the ash, yeah, I'll buy a whole tree. For mahoganies and things, we'll buy padded loads of Sapedes and the like when possible, because we have 9 or 10 students a week learning with us, and I'll buy entire sycamore trees for the wood that we use a lot. But generally, if it's for a custom build, it will just be here's a pretty beautiful quilted top, here's a lovely worm riddled piece of ash, or stuff like that. So essentially that. Okay. eBay is actually surprisingly good. You need to gauge the person selling you wood. You need to make sure that you think that they know what they're doing and that it is going to be properly dried and properly stored, and that's a big thing. Medium term, I'm hoping the Crimson are going to get into being a wood supplier for exactly that reason. We would be able to say, hey, yeah, we guarantee that this wood is good enough to build a guitar out of, because hey, it's the same stuff we use. Currently don't have the space for that, but yeah, hopefully that happens soon. But other than that, Google around, find your local timber suppliers. There are sawyers left, right and centre. Some of it will be wet. You will just have to wait a year or two before it's ready to use. But once you start doing that, if you buy regularly, you'll have a timber store full, and it'll, a couple of years comes around fairly rapidly. Alrighty. Inky Guitars via Discord says, could you make a guitar bowl back out of wood, kind of like a lute? I have done, yes. I haven't made a lute. I've made bowl-backed acoustic guitars. I carved one out of pine in the end. It was the loudest acoustic. Wow, I'd completely forgotten about that. Crikey, I've been building guitars for a while now. When you've done so many that you've literally forgotten entire sort of periods of your life, that's, yeah. Yes, you can. You don't need to do it like a lute, but yeah, you absolutely can. Just take a solid thing, carve it out, and be done. When my mother was pregnant with me, she was playing a deep bowl-backed ovation, and apparently it was whatever. I was serenaded as a child, and this is how I ended up here building guitars. Okay, Stephen says, because you don't have enough technical difficulties from your nice home with your good internet, man wants to do it pissed in a packed pub with everybody piggybacking on the Wi-Fi. Lol. I said nothing about getting pissed with all of you guys. That would not be safe. Zach Ellison says, burn! I mean cases. Okay, there we go. I didn't quite understand your question there. Yes, it would be amazing if we did custom cases for all the guitars. We are not case makers. 99% of our guitars do go, however, in a custom-made case made for us by Hiscox hard cases in the UK. They take up to half a ton of weight. They're incredibly durable, and they have the Crimson Guitars logo cast into the side and all that jazz. That was one of those moments when I first saw that. Oh, that was so good. David Dykes, there we go. Rob Phoenix says, David Dykes is a great place. The guys usually come up trumps on what you need. They are really, really good. Quite pricey, but yeah, they do have a fantastic supply. They also do violin woods and Viola da Gamba woods and cellos and all that sort of stuff. So there we go. Volcanism says, okay, and this is going to be the last question. Inky Guitars, I'm sorry, no, it's not on YouTube. That was pre me doing this. Volcanism says, hey Ben, any ideas to come back from a sand through on a flame-shaped brass inlay on the sides of a Les Paul body? Cheers, V. I would suggest you're probably going to have to just take the whole inlay out and then yeah, go again. Now, I was watching on Ford Hallam's YouTube channel the other night. He was making a tsuba. It's one of the earliest videos, actually. A tsuba is the hand guard that goes on a samurai sword, essentially, and they are amazingly cool and were made very decoratively, and Ford makes them. And I mean, that's somebody whose workshop I really want to visit, actually. In fact, I talk about him rather a lot on this stream. He will, while he was making this tiger tsuba, the face of the tiger was actually raised above and was an inlaid piece of metal inlaid into the metal, and it was the same metal, it just needed to be raised up. So you might be able to take another piece of brass and just inlay it in properly, and then basically make it almost invisible, but it involves hammering and stuff and metalworking chisels and the like, and I don't think that is the sort of thing that you would want to do on a guitar with a piece of inlaid into a veneer, into an inlay that is already relatively thin. I would just start again, basically. Woo! Okay, I am... Stephen Clark says, 3 more now. What are we? Oh, we're looking for 4 likes. So that we've got more... No, 96 current viewers, 96 likes. I'm going to call that a day. Nailed it. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic evening. You are incredible. I really appreciate your support. And, you make my life better, and I love you for it. Thank you. So, yeah, I think we're calling it a night. And have a good one. We've got a one-off project video coming Saturday next week. Nothing midweek. It's going to be fun. Then after that, there is going to be a super edit for Nebula, I hope, including a demo, I hope. And then I'm starting a couple of new builds. It's going to be a fun couple of months. I love you guys. Have fun. Goodbye.